Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Arras Minerals webinar this morning. My name is Darren Klink, President of Arras Minerals, and with me today is Tim Barry, CEO of Arras Minerals. This morning we have a presentation to go through over the next few minutes, and then we will save all questions for the very end. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand through the Teams app at the top, and then we will endeavor to get to your questions in the order that they come through. Your mics and cameras are all switched off, but if you have a question, what we'll end up doing is just opening that up so that your mic is open and you can ask the question. If for whatever reason we're unable to get to your question, please feel free to contact the company directly, either by email, info@arrasminerals.com, or by phone, and we'll be pleased to set up a one-on-one meeting or address it over the phone. Thanks very much for your attendance this morning, and we're going to get going here on the presentation. So through the presentation, we will be making forward-looking statements. I would encourage you to review the forward-looking statements disclaimer that will be available on the presentation on our website. And of course, there's also some additional technical disclosure pertaining to the information in the presentation today. So we're very pleased today to speak to the Arras Teck Alliance, which was announced yesterday. But I think before we get into the details around that, and we also will give you a bit of an update on the projects and as we see them heading into 2024, I think it's really important for us to kind of set the stage and to kind of do a recap on Kazakhstan. Arras, over the last 2.5 years, has established itself as an early mover into this country. And this has been our sole strategy, and one really on the back that we are continuing to find ourselves impressed in terms of how the country is moving along, not only for critical minerals, but more generally for business in the country. This slide here that you see puts together just a basic timeline on how things have evolved over the last number of years. Prior to 2018, 2019, you can see that in our space, Rio Tinto, Cameco, Glencore, Central Asian Metals, all in the country. Rio focusing on a copper project in the center part of Kazakhstan. Cameco, of course, very successful with their uranium partnership with Kazatomprom. Glencore with a significant business there, primarily in the zinc space, and of course Central Asian Metals, a London-listed copper producer, producing copper in the Kounrad district. And then, of course, also in the oil and gas space, where Chevron 2 years ago completed an expansion of their assets in that country to a tune of $45 billion. So significant and consistent Western investment into Kazakhstan. With the new mining law put in place in 2018, and then unfortunately the COVID pandemic, it probably definitely affected the traction, I think, for Western companies focusing on critical minerals and mining and metals to come into the country. But as you can see, resource capital funds shortly after, in 2019, 2020, made a significant investment where they acquired a third interest on a gold mine. That gold mine effectively was a $500 million development that was commissioned earlier this year and is now producing in the neighborhood of 175,000 ounces of gold per annum. Fortescue then came in shortly before Arras entered the country and picked up a significant land package, focusing again on copper. And then obviously Arras has been able to come in with the initial transaction on the Muskoka asset, and then subsequently move swiftly to assemble a land package, which is the third largest land package in the country, focused on critical minerals behind only Rio Tinto and Fortescue. Last year, we were very pleased to announce a strategic equity investment by Teck Resources. That was in November of last year. And that obviously set the stage for future discussions and visits into the country this year. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is that in addition to obviously, Rio and Fortescue, Cameco, Glencore, Central Asian Metals, there's other companies such as Barrick who have been on record about setting up in the country and getting a company established. And then, of course, on a larger scale, what's really changed over the last 12 to 14 months is the significant interest from both European and Western countries in Kazakhstan, specifically for critical minerals and energy security. In the last 2.5 months alone, we've seen Minister of Trade from the UK, French President Macron, as well as German Chancellor, meet with the Kazakhstan government, specifically talking about critical minerals. And the EU, of course, has signed a strategic partnership with Kazakhstan, one of only 4 countries that I'm aware of. One of the other ones is Canada, globally, pertaining to critical minerals. So we think that our strategy as an early mover into Kazakhstan is definitely coming to fruition as we had hoped. And with the continued increased interest in the country as a place to do business, as a place to explore and develop, we think it's only going to continue to get more exciting. As an overview on the country, for those of you that perhaps have not been there, Kazakhstan is a very large country. Not only is it well endowed with minerals, but it's the 9th largest country in the world with only a population of 20 million people. Our projects are located down a 4-lane highway, about a 3-hour drive from the capital, Astana. And the government is a presidential republic with President Tokayev having recently been elected to a 7-year term. Now, this is one of the other things that has changed, is that last year there was new legislation that was passed and proposed by the president, where each president and presidential election will be possible for one 7-year term. And this is part and parcel with the many reforms that have been pushed forward over the last number of years by President Tokayev, and definitely moving in a more Western type approach with many of the fiscal, economic, and governance reforms. Foreign direct investment in this country, much to the surprise of many, about 60% of the foreign direct investment every year comes either out of Europe or North America. And this despite, of course, having neighbors to the north being Russia and neighbors to the southeast and being China. They have significant investment that comes out of Europe and North America, and that, of course, continues to grow. And it is totally a very strong country, having sovereign credit rating that is investment grade, and that obviously is an important aspect as they continue to increase exports. From the overview on the minerals side of things, you can see there's a modernized mining code that I spoke to in 2018, competitive fiscal terms from a corporate tax perspective. But one of the things that I think is definitely starting to resonate with many other companies other than Arras and some of the large majors that are starting to pay attention now is what we're referring to as the Kazakhstan cost advantage. There is some real cost synergies in the country. We, for example, with our drilling rates, are in and around $100 a meter to drill core. I'm not sure that you would find a cheaper place in the world to drill meters. And so that obviously helps with regards to exploration budgets. And it also means for companies like Arras, you don't need to have significant large treasuries in order to kind of move things forward. We're not at 5,000 meters in the Andes. We're not using helicopter-supported rigs. And so then ultimately your overall spend and budget numbers are significantly lower than what you might find in other parts of Latin America or even in Africa for that matter, and definitely in the Western countries like Canada, the US, and Australia. But that also then culminates into a much lower cost structure for CapEx and OpEx at operating mines. And this is where I think the rubber really hits the road. The cost of diesel in the country is around 50 cents a liter diesel, 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour power. You have a highly skilled workforce. And when you put that all together in a scenario with mining rates, you find that your mining rate in an open pit often will start with a $1 handle, and not a $2, $3, or $4 handle that we've become more accustomed to around the world. And so what that means is that the threshold and really the barrier for economic deposits comes down significantly. And that really puts Kazakhstan, again, even in a stronger position. As you can see from a world ranking perspective, top 10 in the world of many of the minerals we use on an everyday basis, and 5th in the world in refined copper exports. Again, further underpinning not only are they mining and extracting, but they have the processing facility with the smelting in the country as well. Another thing I'd like to just draw your attention to is the strong support that not only Arras has received from the Kazakh government, but I think all the companies that have been in the presentation earlier focused on the metals and mining space. Earlier this year in September, President Tokayev's national address, he specifically outlined the importance on exploration for critical minerals in the country. And we can't recall a time where you've actually seen a national head of state specifically outline exploration for critical minerals as a priority. And they've already started to make new changes with regards to making that aspect of things easier and more fluid. And I think it's just part and parcel with the attention to detail and the focus on the opportunity at hand in Kazakhstan that the government has. And the people are very supportive of this. So let's talk now a little bit about the Arras Minerals Teck Resources Strategic Exploration Alliance, which we announced yesterday. So this is really going to accelerate the exploration on what we've established as a strategic land position in the country. As I mentioned earlier, we've assembled the 3rd largest land package in the country, focused in Pavlodar. And surrounding our base in Ekibastuz. This strategic alliance, as we announced yesterday, covers about 1,900 square kilometers over what you see on the slide as Package A and Package B. And Teck will fund an initial 2024-2025 generative program to a tune of US $5 million prior to having the option then to begin sole funding to earn an interest in up to 4 projects, which would be a maximum of 120 square kilometers each. This ultimately would reduce Arras's burn rate. We'll see Teck, sole fund the exploration across this 1,900 square kilometer package, leveraging the work that we've done over the last 2 years. And in fact, across these licenses this past summer program, we've taken more than 60,000 soil samples, which are now going through analysis and ultimately are going to help us for further targeting as we get into 2024. And then, what the overall structure here is that once we get through the generative program and to the back end of 2025, then Teck has that opportunity to select up to 4 projects. Much smaller areas, of course, 120 kilometers each, and then the remaining land package then would revert back to Arras. I think it's fair to say that Teck is very much focused on critical minerals, on copper in particular, and I think probably a very large scale sort of opportunities, and we're very excited and pleased to partner with Teck. This, of course, follows on with their initial investment last year. And then they had an opportunity to bring their entire team to Kazakhstan earlier this year, and I think that was really an important part of the discussion that kicked off and got us to where we announced yesterday. So some key terms on the agreement itself. As I mentioned before, they'll spend $2.5 million per license over these first 2 years. Arras will initially act as the manager. Teck has the option after the first year at any point to assume the manager. And then as you see further down in the overall terms, through a series of options, should they designate a project or projects, each of those will see a significant amount of spend as we work through the various different options to earn interest. So initially 51, then 65, and then potentially up to 75%. In order to achieve that 75% interest, Teck would spend $47.5 million on each of those projects. and of course to a maximum of 4 projects, so a total spend potential of $190 million over the next few years. So this is a significant commitment by Teck, and I think this this initial sort of generative program will be very important for us. Definitely, as we've articulated in the past, and for those that have had a chance to come out and visit the projects, in many cases, we over the last 2 years and summer program work that we've done, this is the first exploration work that has been done pre the fall of the Soviet Union. And so it's really a testament to our geology team on going back to many of the Russian and Soviet Union databases, maps, etc., and then following up with our work on the ground. And so this generative program is really going to allow us to accelerate moving these targets forward and getting them into drill-ready status in many cases. So I'm now going to hand it over to Tim, and Tim's going to walk through really the portfolio of projects, and specifically starting with some of the projects that will fall underneath the Teck Alliance, and then talking about some of the ones that in fact will be retained 100% by Arras, that will be our focus in 2024.
Great, thanks, Darren. So I think it's important to outline Arras's business plan here. We recognize porphyries are big projects, and drilling them out and developing them to the next step will require key partnerships with companies like Teck. However, the other key observation is we feel we can add a lot of value to projects, particularly in the early stage. And so one of the reasons why we've structured the deal we have is Teck is coming in on a series of our licenses, but other licenses that we feel we can continue to add quick value. We've kept those for ourselves, but obviously at some point we would like to make sure we get partners on those projects. So to give you a quick rundown on the geology of Kazakhstan, as Darren said, it's a big country, 9th largest country in the world. These are the 3 main towns we spend time in. I live in Almaty, and Astana is where most people would fly into to come and visit our projects. 26 known porphyries or porphyry deposits that have all been found during the Soviet times. And these porphyry deposits are, there we go. These porphyry deposits are spread over 3 distinct porphyry belts in Kazakhstan. So when I say distinct, they're all different ages and have basically been squished up into what they call the Central Asian orogenic belt. I don't know of any country in the world that has 3 separate and distinct productive porphyry belts in it. So our projects, this isn't working here. Do you want to click on that? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So our projects are located in the most northern of the belt, known as the Chingiz-Boshakol magmatic arc, and our license area sits 250 kilometers from the capital city of Astana. There's 3 known porphyries in that belt. 2 are in production, and the 3rd is our Muskoga project, which we'll touch on briefly at the end of this presentation. So this is zooming into the top of that Boshakol Chingiz magmatic arc. And what we're really showing here is the positioning of our licenses, basically staking up what we think is the dominant land position in this porphyry belt. The other thing I'll highlight, and one of the things that drew us to this part of Kazakhstan, is the other porphyry belts have been well explored with regards to the fact that there's a lot of outcrop that all sticks out of the ground. in this porphyry belt, you're actually looking at a very subdued topography with a lot of cover. And I think that's resulted in less attention in the past being applied to it. But the fact that we've got two productive working porphyries in this belt, coupled with our third, the Muskoka deposit, speaks to the fertility of it, and I guess the prospectivity that we're chasing. So to take you into a couple of the projects that form part of the Teck Alliance, I'll zoom you into what we call our Mazor license area. So the red represents our license, and what I've highlighted here is what's called the Boshakol mine. It's a mine run by, it's a porphyry deposit run by Kaz Minerals that currently is in production. And again, one of the things I'll highlight is I don't know many places in the world where you can go and stake all around an operating porphyry deposit. So the Boshakol mine has a very strong northeast trend to it. And as you enter onto our license, the question is what happens? And what I'm showing here is an overburden map that the Soviets put together in the 1970s. And basically it goes undercover. And to steal a quote from Peter McGaw when he discovered Juanicipio, he found Juanicipio basically using a ruler. And I think this is the potential that we've got with Boshakol here. If you zoom into our most southern license right now, called Akaduk, this is a map. It's a little complicated, but what it's actually showing you is the yellow outline is a very strong molybdenum anomaly, and then the red is a widespread quartzite cap. And you find these particularly in our area, these massive quartz lithocaps that we've spent a lot of work on studying. It's got all the hallmark signs of a porphyry system, and basically it hasn't been drilled yet. So you're looking at something over 20 square kilometers in size there to give you a sense of scale. And then the Soviets have gone in and done some superficial work and a little bit of drilling. Typically, the Soviet drill holes were shallow, so less than 200 meters, and quite sporadic in how they targeted lithocaps. I think one of the things to highlight is their work was very good in identifying what they called secondary quartzites or quartz lithocaps in the field, but the model of a porphyry system was still being developed at the time. And so I don't think they appreciated to the same extent we do today that often the top parts of lithocaps are barren and the real porphyry system has yet to be found. And that's certainly the case here with this Akaduk project. So in addition, so that's two projects out of many that fall within the Teck Alliance. To briefly touch on a couple of projects that fall outside of the Teck Alliance, I'll take you to our Alamus project. So this sits just south of the town we operate out of, called Ekibastuz. It's 13 kilometers to this project here. And what's interesting about this project is the dashed line represents a color anomaly, which actually corresponds to a lithocap again. And there is actually some drilling, historical drilling on this. So starting at surface, we're hitting intercepts of 143 meters at 0.17 gold, 0.42 copper, 100 meters at over a gram gold, 0.2 copper. And it's important to highlight two things here. This mineralization starts at surface. The holes that were drilled were shallow, so typically, again, less than 200 meters. And the two clusters of drilling that are shown on this map sit 5 kilometers apart. So, you know, there's huge potential here to expand what we're seeing at Alamos. And this is some of the core. We've been lucky enough that this core still exists. And one of the first things we'll be doing is re-assaying a lot of this core, and you'll start to see some news flow related to the Alamos system coming shortly. Now, to take you to what got us into the country, which is our Muskoka project, well, this is our current resource that we've got. It represents a system that was discovered by the Soviets and then developed by a company called Copperbelt. And with Copperbelt, we have an option to purchase this project. Copperbelt did quite a bit of work on it. And this map here just shows the drilling. And there's two things I'll really highlight from the drilling that was done. Was 95% of that drilling focused on the actual core of the deposit itself. And then there's been very little drilling outside of the main deposit. So we did our 43101 resource based on the historical drilling, and it came out to roughly about 200 million tons at 0.5 gram gold and 0.3 copper. So it equates to 3.5 million ounces of gold and 600,000 tons of contained copper. And it's important to note that this is our starting point with Muskoka. The question, of course, is, can it get bigger? So if you zoom back to the deposit as we know it today, where you have to imagine Muskoka is basically like being in a big grassy paddock, not unlike the prairies in Saskatchewan or Manitoba, and it's completely buried. There's about 30 to 40 meters of overburden sitting over the top. So one of the techniques to explore is to drill through that overburden and sample the top of bedrock. And this gives you two things. It actually gives you three things. It gives you your geology, gives you your alteration halo, and it also gives you your geochemical anomaly in the area. This is our copper anomaly that we identified. That's the deposit relative to the copper anomaly. And then right now it's over 4 kilometers in length. And I guess one thing to highlight here is that copper anomaly stops, not because there's no more at surface mineralization. It stops because that's the extent of our KGK drilling, which we use to sample the top of bedrock. This is our gold anomaly. So obviously copper and gold is very coincident. And since we've been in control of this project, we've done roughly about 25,000 meters. The bulk of the meters focused on the edges of the main deposit. And these are the kind of numbers we were getting as we tested and expanded that main deposit. So 973 meters at 0.82 copper, 1,124 meters at 0.61 copper equivalent. And the thing I'll draw your attention to is the including. There's a very, very high grade core to the Muskoka deposit, anywhere from 1.1 to 2.5% copper equivalent. So that's roughly about half gold, half copper. We then stepped down and put our first drill fence across the central part of the anomaly. What we found was a low-grade halo, but again, some decent intercepts of 127 meters at 0.57 copper equivalent. Another one at 69 at 0.71 copper equivalent. And really what I'll highlight here is these are this is the first 3 drill holes into this portion of the deposit. So the fact that we're getting this kind of mineralization with the first holes there, I think is extremely encouraging. And then lastly, right in the south, we move to what we call Muskoka South, and this is a gold-dominated portion. It probably reflects a higher portion of a porphyry and probably some kind of zonation. Very little copper in the south, but some very good gold grades. So 43 meters at over 2 grams gold, 84 at 1.3. And this, when you look at this system as a whole, you're looking at over a 4-kilometer mineralized strike length, which we think has the potential to build into something quite significant. So to finish here, this is a little bit of marketing, but I think it does a good job of summarizing the opportunity we have in Kazakhstan. So we're in this Boshikol-Chingis magmatic arc. It's a 500-kilometer long, effectively unexplored porphyry belt. And there are 3 known porphyries in this belt. 2 are in production, and we have the 3rd with Muskoka. And I guess I think we can safely say under our other licenses, including the Teck Alliance, there's plenty more to find. And you get a sense of how many porphyries you can hide in similar sized belts when you look at some of the great porphyry regions of the world.
So just to start summarizing here before we pause and take questions, I think that, as we've gone through here over the last few minutes, you can see that we continue to believe we're in the right place at the right time. The world is definitely watching, and I think Kazakhstan is becoming a strategic partner for critical minerals and energy security globally. The Kazakhstan cost advantage, I think, cannot be overlooked. The fact is that what we've seen, not only in the last sort of 12 to 18 months in an inflationary environment, but it was still very much, well prior to that that it really stood out to us in terms of the cost to operate and to do work in the country. Your CapEx, OpEx are all, significantly lower than in many of the other places that, we're developing and building mines today. It has a proven track record. It has for many years been a top 10 producer globally of many of the minerals we use every day. And then that really is partnered with a very strong focus from the government and really the people and society in general, accepting and encouraging resource development in the country. And that's something that we've continued to experience while we've been in Kazakhstan, and couldn't be more happier with the support that we've received. This Teck Strategic Alliance is a really important step and has been part of our strategy all along in terms of, getting in early, establishing ourselves, picking up ground and licenses that we felt were highly prospective, and recognizing that, the land package that we've been able to pull together was very large and expansive, would require a lot of work, and ultimately to seek partners to potentially move forward with those. As Tim's mentioned, there's very few places in the world that that we can think of, or even speaking with the many groups that have been through over the last 18 months to visit, where you can establish yourself in a belt that has known operating copper gold mines, and be able to establish a land footprint of this size. And so we'll continue to move forward with that sort of strategy here. And I think by having Teck as a partner, it obviously allows us to accelerate the work on the ground. Will complement the work that we will do on our 100% owned projects. And of course, it also helps us to drive more news flow and exploration results into the marketplace. I think the other thing that, we have tried to do, despite the fact of challenging markets, for the mineral space here over the last 12 to 18 months, is to be prudent. And so I think focusing on, maximizing our exposure through multiple high potential targets, but still trying to maintain a very tight share structure, and obviously spend profile as well to conserve capital where we can. And most importantly, when you're new into a jurisdiction, and a jurisdiction such as this, is being opportunistic. And so we'll continue to be opportunistic with additional opportunities that come down the pike for us. Since we've established ourselves and I think built a very strong reputation in the country with our many partners, we continue to get inbounds on interesting opportunities, and I think this is something that we want to continue to take advantage of. Just as we round things out, the capital structure, you can see there, 68 million shares out, cash in the bank about $1.5 million, and a market cap of $17 million. Teck retains an interest of just under 10% from an equity perspective. And I think, one thing to point out is that while that's not a huge treasury, as I said, it definitely goes a lot further than if we had this sort of land package in Latin America or North America or even in Europe. Our spend profile obviously is significantly lower when we're out doing work on the ground. And then just a summary there with regards to the leadership team. For those of you that have not met us before, Tim is full-time based in Kazakhstan. I'm here in Vancouver, and we're very fortunate to have a very strong network on our board. As you can see there, Brian Edgar, Wes Carson, Vera Kabalia, Daniel Coons, and Christian Malau. And then, of course, our technical advisors, Dr. Craig Hart, Steve Israel, and John Mark Stouty, all with immense amounts of porphyry experience globally, and really helps to strengthen the overall team that we've put together with Matt, Chris, and Tim and I, and Vlado, our chief geologist in country. So with that, we're going to pause and open it up for questions. As I mentioned before, should you have a question, please use the little indicator there by raising your hand. And then what we'll try and do is we'll try and get to you and open up the mic. This is a little bit of a trial and error. It's the first time we've done this, but yes, please feed through any questions by raising your hand, and then we'll try to address them.
I think we answered all their questions.
Maybe. Okay. Oh, there's Eric. Okay, bear with me here. Okay, so we got a question from Eric. Eric, I think I've opened up your mic. You can take it off mute.
Okay, hey guys. Yeah, congratulations on the deal. I know it's been a long time coming.
Thank you.
When do you think you'll have a better handle on what 2024 exploration plans will look like on your ground?
I think that's part of what we're working on right now. I'm in Vancouver to obviously meet with Teck. We'll be meeting with them next week as to the steps and the plans there. And there's going to be a lot of synergies, I think, with the work we'll conduct on our own ground. And as we roll into 2024, they'll get finalized. And in terms of, I guess, thinking about when that gets executed, I was speaking to the team today. It's -37 in Ekibastuz right now. So the enthusiasm for getting out and into the field seems low, which that obviously puts a little bit of a brake on plans. But
No,
I think we'll, yeah,
That's pretty damn cold. Nobody can blame me for that. I was just more thinking of the budget. The treasury is a bit light. And albeit the CAS cost advantage is what it is. I'm just curious how you guys are thinking about the licenses you did keep. I did notice that Teck got a ROFO on LMS. How hard did they push for that?
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say that because of the drilling which Tim talked about, that was done about 15 years ago, when we've had many guests here over the last 18 months come out and take a look, it's always the first one that everyone gravitates to, because you can stand on it, you can look at it, you can see the drill results, and it's pretty apparent. What we've been able to do over last summer and this summer through the summer programs is really get out not only in LMS but in virtually all the licenses and really hit it hard with the soil program. And so we're in the process right now of going through and analyzing about 60,000 samples in the lab. And the good thing is, of course, the lab's heated, so we don't get as much complaining when it gets cold. So I think to maybe round out that, Eric, we've still got a lot of data points that are coming in right now as we speak, as we get into the new year and have the opportunity to really kind of hone out what that program is going to look like across the 1,900 square kilometer alliance package. Then we'll be able to kind of tuck in, what we think makes most sense for us, looking at LMS, Amandai, and then also, of course, Muskoka this year as well. But, for the next few months here, I think we're in reasonably good shape with regards to our treasury. And, again, we'll see how things kind of come together and obviously be opportunistic. But we're keen to get out on LMS, and I think, as Tim mentioned, you're going to start to see some news flow in that in January as we start to see some of the re-assay results, and even maybe some of the soil work as well, as we start to put together and see what it means. Okay, thanks, Eric. I think Gorm. Gorm, you may have had a question as well. So what I'm going to do here is just check. I'll allow the mic for Gorm. He had his hand up. Gorm, your mic is open, and you can take yourself off mute. Okay, can't turn off the mute. Okay, I see. Thanks for the message. Do you want to just fire through maybe a question on the chat, and we potentially can do it that way then? I see there's a text here as well from Nico. We'll get to that here in just a minute. Maybe while we're waiting for Gorm to come through, Nico, you've asked about the drilling plan for 2024 for Arras and for Teck. I think probably that might have been similar to what Eric had answered there. I mean, Tim, do you have anything that you want to answer additionally on that?
Yeah, the size of the drill programs have yet to be determined, but it's our intention very much there are walk up and drill ready targets, and that drill program will likely kick off in May, June.
Okay, Gorm, if you had a question, if you want to fire it through on the chat, and then if anyone else there we go. So does the quoted cash balance in the presentation include the expected $1 million payout from Teck? When is the payment from Teck expected to be received? So yeah, so we're talking US dollars, Canadian dollars. I think in the bank we're probably in that $1.5 to $2 million Canadian basis right now. Yeah, the US dollar 1 million from Teck actually is come through today, in fact. So there's also a little bit more there. We've been obviously over the last couple of months been doing quite a bit of work on the licenses and Teck's been very supportive of the work that we've been doing. So we've obviously been keeping them intact on that, and there was a bit of a reimbursement on some of that work that we've been able to do, and a couple of additional licenses, in fact, that we've picked up within the alliance. Again, just kind of demonstrating to maintain our opportunistic sort of approach to bolting on additional opportunities when we think it makes sense. Okay, well, if there's any other sort of follow-up questions, let me just see here. One more from Gorm. Thank you for that. What would a limited drill campaign at LMS capturing potential drilling synergies with Teck might be drill testing H2 next year sit in terms of cost ballpark?
Yeah, a drill program on LMS will probably start with the known mineralization for two reasons. Is the holes were very shallow, so I think we definitely want to test that mineralization to depth. And the other key thing is I think we would want to confirm some of that drilling with our own. The results at that point will obviously dictate the next step, but it'll be step outs from the known mineralization. So, as Darren pointed out, when you're drilling for $100 a meter, you can you can be a little more bold with your drill program and make sure you put solid drill fences across a deposit. And that first pass drill program will be to understand what we've got. So the step outs will be technically driven as opposed to trying to define, resources.
Okay, I don't.
Just
Oh,
to, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. Yeah, go ahead.
How visually indicative of the mineralization is the LMS core? As in, are you able to know when you're in the zone based on that kind of grade, this type of mineralization? Forgive me, I'm not a geo. I'm just wondering if the prior operators were drilling shallow holes as a function of a rig capability or mineralization, visually.
Yeah.
This is just what they're seeing.
No, it's a good question. You absolutely do know when you're in the mineralization. Visual sulfides, particularly copper sulfides, you pick out. And I guess it's a good question. It's one we've asked ourselves: is why were holes stopped in obvious mineralization? And I suspect that there was a prevailing sort of sense, and I've seen this in other parts of Kazakhstan, that everything had to be open pittable. So I guess down to 200 meters, and why drill beyond that? That's just wasting money. So I think that's what we're seeing at LMS is shallow drill holes with the view that this will be an open pit mine, and there was no need to drill much deeper.
And these are 15 years ago as well, right? So the world's changed again since that has happened as well. So.
Well, and we saw that to some degree on Muskoka as well, where the deepest drill hole was about 400 meters, and we've drilled now 1,100 meter holes that are still in mineralization all the way to the bottom. So to me, it just speaks to the mentality of the time.
Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone. We really appreciate your attendance today. We will repost this to the website, and so there'll be ability to kind of go back and review it. But as we mentioned before, happy to entertain additional questions and queries, through an email or just calling the company directly. Thank you again for your support and your time, and we look forward to continuing to keep you updated here as we head into 2024. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everyone out there.